All right, guys. We are going to. Sorry, that was up. We're going to see if this works. I hope that it's gotten better. Let's see. Let's go. Audio's clean, at least for now. All right. So we got to redo everything. I'm sorry, everybody. We're going to redo everything. So let me go ahead and start. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the W.A.D.E Concept Podcast. I'm your host, W.A.D. Plemons, and I am with you as always from the comfort of my own home. For now. Today we are talking about UFC 243, and if you guys are liking what we're doing here at the YouTube at the W.A.D.E Concept, make sure you hit that like button, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you like seeing my beautiful face every day, come in, join me in the video podcasts. It will, from now on, be recordings, unfortunately. But fortunately, not unfortunately, fortunately, it's going to give me the opportunity to do a lot more content, to do great things with you guys. So, yes, come and join me. Come and have some laughs with me. But if you can't make it, if you can't get to the video stream, if you're going on a trip, if you're driving to work, if you're working out, if you're doing whatever with your family and you just want to hear, you guys can, it's a good idea for you guys to subscribe on the Apple Podcasts, iTunes Podcasts, whatever they're calling that, and Spotify as well. So go check those out. Links are in the description for all those things. If you want to watch the YouTube, if you want to listen, iTunes, Spotify, make sure you leave me a like and review on those because it really helps out the podcast. It helps grow the podcast for people that haven't yet experienced the W.A.D.E concept, and I know that you guys love that. You guys love this interactive kind of bond we have in the chat, myself, everybody. And while we're not going to be doing the live streams every single day or every 2 days or whatever it is now, you'll be able to catch me on the live streams for the fight reactions. Unfortunately, we still have a couple days where I have to work on Saturdays, but after that, we are going to be free to react to every fight that we want to watch. So that'll be a fun time. That'll bring some new people into the podcast. So thank you for being here. And yes, let's just get right into it, guys. I'm hoping the audio is better right now because we just had to record probably 15 minutes of a podcast, and then the audio sounded like one of my chat explained R2-D2, so we had to go ahead and hit the reset button, but we're back. So, for the people watching on YouTube, we are going to break down one prelim fight, then we are going to move to the main card for UFC 243. This is New Zealand versus Australia. Australia, what am I talking about? Australia. You're talking about Israel Adesanya, the last style bender, Bobby Knuckles, the Reaper, Robert Whittaker, in a battle for Oceania Supreme. Whoever wins this fight is going to own Oceania, basically. And not only that, they're going to have a 185 strap around their waist to say they're the man. And no one can argue. There's some contenders lined up, but this is for the best in the world, guys. To unify the belts to prove who is the best 185er on the planet. So I'm excited for this fight. I really wish I could watch. I'm working, unfortunately, Saturday. I will watch. I'll watch after work, so no spoilers to you guys on Twitter. By the way, follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Instagram if you guys want to keep in touch with me outside of the podcast. And if you want to chat, if you want to ask about the podcast, ask some questions about whatever you want, I'll be there. But yes, we are going to be watching Saturday night. And it's weird because the fights are Saturday night, but then you have them fighting on Sunday morning in Australia time. So it's like some weird time vortex. They are in Marvel Stadium, so maybe Doctor Strange working some magic, doing some things behind the scenes. But guys, we have to talk about this. We were about midway through in our last podcast that my audio kind of cut out, and we saw this picture. For people watching on the YouTube, my man Rostam Akhman is the hairiest individual I've ever seen in my life. Wow. The full sweater is on without it having a shirt. I don't know how. I'm not even trying to make fun of the guy because, of course, he would wreck my shit in about a minute. But my Lord, can we get this guy some manscaping tutorials? That is wild. Just off that alone, I would be uncomfortable fighting this man. Like, he just would lay on me, and I would feel as if just someone had thrown a carpet over me. I can't do it. I could not do it. But props to my boy Jake Matthews, and that's the first fight we're picking on this card. Jake Matthews versus Rostam Akhman. This is Rostam's debut in the UFC. This fool is hairy, dude. I'm sorry, guys. If you guys are listening on your iTunes or Spotify podcast, just go and listen or go and look up Rostam Akhman, one of the hairiest men I've ever seen. Fit NBA 2K20 says, hey, when is the fight? What time in Europe? That's a good question. What time in Europe? Australian time, it is Sunday morning, and I'm in the States on the West Coast, so it'll be about 7 p.m. West Coast time. So I'm not sure for Europe, though. I'm sure sometime that would make it probably sometime in the late evening in Europe, or like later, like 1 or 2 a.m. Don't hold me to that, but I think that's how it works. You guys are like 8 hours ahead of me over here. So 8 hours from whenever to 7 p.m. is Pacific time, I think. Anyway, Jake Matthews, local to Australia. Part of the reason he's on this card is obviously being a local fighter, but a UFC veteran. And this is one of the things we do for these cards. We like to pick one prelim fight that isn't necessarily a huge fight, but is something that we can go ahead and of course, Fit, thank you for being here, man. That's something we can go ahead and pick right out of the gate and get a win under our belt, hopefully. And yeah, with this one, with Rostam being a debut, don't know too much about him. And what we do know about Jake Matthews is he's a veteran, not only in the UFC, but in the fight game in general. Reach advantage. It looks like 73-0, but I don't think that's the case. Jake's a big 170. We're going to go unanimous decision, unanimous decision victory for Jake Matthews over Rostam, the hair monster, Akhman. Man, I'm sorry. I can't even break down this fight. I'm just trying not to get entangled in that bee's nest that is that man's hair. Jesus Christ. Anyway, moving on. Guys, this card is so important for so many reasons. You have obviously huge fighters for, like I said, Oceania. You have a lot of guys from Australia. You have a lot of guys from New Zealand. So it's big for that part of the country, right? But not only that, it is huge for fight fans in general because they are selling out a 56,000 person venue. Marvel Stadium in Australia is 56,000. I thought the number was 40,000. That's what I thought the number was. But it turns out it's a 56,000 person venue, and they sold it out. That's got to be the biggest sellout they've ever had. Imagine an NFL football team stadium being sold out for a fight in the States, right? These venues in the States are built to max capacity around 20,000, 25 at a really large like venue would be 25,000. You're talking 56,000 people. That's basically a football stadium watching a, I don't know what the dimensions are, I think it's 16 feet cage, like obviously in an octagon, but that small of a little event being sold out and people in the nosebleeds way up that could barely see still coming out and supporting their fighters. That is huge for this sport, guys. Huge. And the top 3 fights here, even, Diego Lima, like these are great fights and meaningful fights. So, while we don't really know too much about Justin Tafa or Yorgan de Castro, these last 4 fights are huge for their divisions and for these guys. So let's go ahead and break them down, and then we'll talk in a pretty good extensive discussion about our our middleweight championship bout. Sorry, I was looking at Tuivasa and said heavyweight. All right, so we have Justin Tafa and Yorgan de Castro. Again, we're gonna swing and miss here because I just don't know too much about these guys. We can let's look at them though. Justin Tafa looks like an identical, like a younger Mark Hunt. Tell me that guy doesn't look just like, I'm kind of in the way, so let's do this. Tell me this guy doesn't look just like Mark Hunt. Just like him, without the blonde highlights. That's exactly who this guy looks like. I think it's his debut, obviously. Oh, it is. So both these guys, debut. This is basically a pick 'em for us, guys. There's no information here about these guys other than 100% TKO, KO for Tafa and 80% for Castro. Just based on that alone, I think we're gonna go just because it's home field advantage for Tafa. I think we're gonna go Tafa, Justin Tafa, and we'll just because they are heavyweights, we're going knockouts, boys. And he has 100% knockout / TKO rating, so I have a feeling they're swinging leather and someone's getting put to sleep. I won't bet against Tafa in his home, not home, but in his region. So we'll go Tafa there by TK. We'll go Tafa KO second round. These big boys aren't going to be, they're going to be huffing and puffing by the third. So I think he gets it done either late first or early second. We'll go with the second round TKO for Justin Tafa. Okay. We have Luke Jumeau. Tafa. My boy Kyle, man. This is why I like Kyle. Kyle comes back, even when I in stream fix audio, which I hope the audio's fixed, and comes back and hits me with that support some more. My man, dude. Kyle, you're my fucking guy, dog. But yes, we have Luke Jumeau versus Diego Lima. So Diego Lima, obviously the older brother of Douglas Lima. The standout at Bellator. Bellator's welterweight division is also super deep, and thanks, brother, I appreciate it. And that division is one of those ones that's in just like the UFC is in they're in a tournament actually, but a super deep division. And Douglas Lima is proving why he's one of the best in the world in Bellator. But his older brother Diego, man, he is also a very good fighter, and coming off a knockout victory in his last fight. No one definitely not a guy to sleep on. If you watched him on the Contender Series for a long time, I think he was on it twice actually. He has his struggles obviously in some capacities, but he's a phenomenal striker. His stand-up, I think he's coming into his own. I think he's starting to find his way around what his skill set is. He isn't going to be Douglas Lima, right? He's not going to have maybe some of the intangibles that Douglas has. But he has a similar fight style, and he cracks. When he hits, it hurts. And he's explosive, and he has different movements. And I think sometimes that he's in his head a lot. I think that it's really easy for a guy like Diego to see his brother Douglas doing so well, and him not necessarily being in that same position. And for him to continue his career and not have that success, I think he's gotten into his head a lot. And it's a detriment. You can ask guys like Uriah Hall. You can even ask guys like DC. If you're in your head and not flowing and not fighting with a clear conscience, it is a one-way street to KOsville. You can't get into that cage and have self-doubt right out of the gate, right? If you don't just land those first couple combinations, I don't think that the guys that second guess themselves right out of the bat, it's not a good look. You're going to get KO'd. And Diego's had that problem in some of his fights where it seems like he's too hesitant to pull the trigger, or he gets down on himself during the fight and it doesn't quite work out for him. But it looks like he's starting to overcome that mental block and really show some skills here. But we have Luke Jumeau here, and the guy looks like a shit brick house. Another New Zealander on the card, 5'11", giving up a little bit in reach. I don't necessarily think that's significant in this case. Looks like a guy that's really going to ride this out. Average fight time is 15 minutes, so I anticipate either a very quick stand-up exchange and then a lot of grappling from Jumeau, which would put Lima in some trouble. Diego doesn't necessarily do great against grapplers. So I think that if Jumeau can get a hold of Diego and control top position, can find a way to continue to pressure forward on him and not really give him space to let go with a lot of combinations or different strikes, then as Kyle said, I think that we could see a decision here for Jumeau. But it only takes one. It only takes one shot, and Diego's talented enough to land that shot. I think we'll go with Kyle here. I think we're going to go with a Jumeau decision. Unanimous. I think if he can get his hands on Diego and just, pressure him, keep him out of his comfort zone, maybe discourage him a little bit from striking and kicking, and have him on his back for a majority of the fight. I think that's one of the ways that's easiest to go about beating Diego is to just get him uncomfortable and get into his face and not let him get off strikes early. Discourages him from doing it later in the fight, especially kicks, when you can take him down. So we'll go with Jumeau and a unanimous decision victory. I don't know why I have to keep clicking back out of that. All right, Tai Tuivasa, Sergey Spivak. It's pretty simple who I'm going with here, and it's a pure biased pick by me, and that's okay. You know what? I can be biased. I can be biased because I'm not a journalist. I'm not an analyst yet. When I am an analyst, I'll still have predictions, but I won't be as biased about it. I love Tai Tuivasa. I love this guy doing freaking shoeies after he wins. Under the tutelage of Mark Hunt, a guy that freaking cracks. His only issue is this ability to fight with a game plan, right? Fight with a some sort of smart, intelligent game plan coming into a fight and not just throw. Because he's been in there with some tough guys. He's been in there with JDS. And, in a different circumstance, had he fought a little smarter, not saying that he could have won that fight, but the fight would have gone longer. And JDS is a huge name for a guy that young to be thrown in there with. And, for the most part, held his own for a little bit. And I think that if we can start to develop a little bit more of a game plan, if we can start to fight a little smarter and not when we get cracked, start just throwing back like crazy, even though that is under the tutelage of Mark Hunt, who we've seen when he gets hurt, he starts to come forward on you. It's a Tony Ferguson type thing where when they're hurt, they want to come back and get that one back, right? They just got, cracked. They want to get you back one. And usually it leaves, especially heavyweights, in trouble. And I think if Tai Tuivasa, he's got a great style. He's fun to watch. He's explosive. He lands insane knockouts. I don't doubt that he can walk right in and put the right hand on Sergey and put him away. I would love to see that, and I think the whole crowd, like Kyle said, would go insane. But I think for the longevity of his future, Bam Bam, phenomenal nickname, we've got to be smart about how he fights, right? At heavyweight, anybody can go out in one punch. Anybody. I'm not saying you change his style completely, but I'm saying let's select our shots, right? Let's be selective. Let's be accurate. Let's be cognizant of the fact that there's another guy on the other side there. And if I'm going to get to the strap, or if I'm going to get to that top 10, top 5, we have to figure out a different way of entering and exiting the pocket and, possibly either grappling or defending some grappling techniques. Because there's guys at that top 5, top 10 that can crack just as hard as Tai Tuivasa can crack. And some with better technique and with a longer reach. So in this fight, I could see Tai catching him with one of those elbows in the clinch that he's very, well known for. Knee to the body, elbow in the clinch, and a TKO or KO victory pretty quickly. But we have to, moving forward with Tai, I'm a huge fan. We have to figure out a way for him, or they have to figure out a way for him to be more cognizant of the danger that lurks by staying in the pocket with guys at heavyweight over and over and over. If he wants to get to that top 5, top 10, we have to be smarter in our fighting. I hope so. I want to see a new and improved Tai, man. It's been a while since he's fought. I want to see movement, especially head movement, because I don't necessarily think that any type of grappling exchange is going to favor Tai. So I want to see a lot of in and out of the pocket. I don't want to see him getting stuck there and getting double-legged and him laying on his back again, getting smashed. So I'd like to see a little bit of movement. I'd like to see some takedown defense. And then, yeah, of course, I'd like to see him crack 100%. Who is my favorite fighter of all time? Man, what a question, Fix. Favorite fighter of all time? Shoot, that's a good question. I really want to say Daniel Cormier. Just because, Fix, if you're new here, Daniel Cormier got me back into watching the UFC. He was the guy that got me back into loving this sport again, loving MMA. Him and John Jones got me back into the sport. So I'd love to say Daniel Cormier just because of what he represents in the cage, his work ethic, the grind never stops. What he represents outside of the cage, a role model, leader, family man, just a complete guy, a guy that you'd want to learn from, a guy that is actually passionate about helping, people learn and grow, and just his whole demeanor. Yours is probably Miocic and John Jones. Those are good picks, man. Those are great picks. Stipe is a great fighter, great guy as well. John is probably the best to ever do it. Conor is up there for me too. Watching the rise of Conor McGregor was something I don't think we'll ever see again. I don't think we'll ever see that meteoric rise of a guy that just captivated everything that we wanted in a fighter. A guy that was brash. He was confident. He was mesmerizing in his style and his technique. He walked guys down. He said he was going to finish them, and he did. And not only that, but he did it in spectacular fashion. And he just captivated all of our imaginations about what fighting could be for guys. It wasn't necessarily always popular, but it was entertaining, and it was something that you saw a guy that 100% believed in himself. He didn't believe in the hype. He didn't believe in, the media, or whatever it was that was hyping him up. He believed in himself, and he said what he thought. And he went out and did it. So that was a big, especially that 3 to 4 year Conor run was insane for me. Anderson Silva was another one. When I saw Anderson Silva start to make his way into the UFC, and I hadn't heard about the years and years of this guy outside of the cage, but when he started to make his way into the UFC, and this is around the time where I started to fall kind of in and out of love with the UFC and MMA, Anderson Silva was a guy that he looked like he wasn't from Earth. The way he was striking and the techniques he was showing, and how easy it was for him to avoid damage, right? You didn't see a lot of guys fighting with their hands down at that time. You didn't see a lot of guys striking the way Anderson Silva did. He knocked out Forrest Griffin moving backwards with like a little floppy jab. He was fighting with his hands down and just using his head movement, and his timing was insane. He'd just slip right out of the way of shots and then come back with a flurry, front kicks to the face. Another guy that just, you couldn't believe how talented he was. So I would say Anderson. I liked GSP, but he was never like a favorite of mine. So Anderson, Daniel Cormier. I'll throw John in there. John's very entertaining. I love that John is so different, right? He was different coming up. And then Conor. But right now, I'm a big fan of Uriah Hall. I'm a big fan of Israel Adesanya. Cody Garbrandt, I'm a big fan of. Trying to think who else I really like. Different weight classes. At 45, Max is insane, but I think I'm a bigger fan of Brian Ortega at 45. 55. Gaethje's obviously nice. He's fun to watch. Oh, Darren Till, obviously. I'm a huge fan of Darren Till. I hope that guy gets some gold, man, because he's another guy that I love to watch. Love to watch him fight. All right, Jorge Masvidal. I could just go down the list. It's a great time to be a fight fan. We'll say that. It is a great time to be a fight fan. Okay, sorry. I got a little carried away there. We have a massive, massive fight, guys. This fight could steal Pedro Hizzo, Cejudo, Till, Jones, Stipe. Nice. I like those, Kyle. I like those a lot. Yeah, Henry Cejudo's another guy, man. That dude, to be a three-sport or a combat sports athlete that wins 3 different titles, never been done. A gold medalist, then wins two UFC championships. Never been done. This fight right here, though, guys, Iaquinta, Dan Hooker, this is insane. Insane fight. This could be, now I told you guys this on the Tuesday podcast, this could be a fight of the year contender. I'm telling you, these guys are coming for war. Neither of these guys come to grapple, and not to say that that's not war, but these guys are coming to throw leather. And Dan Hooker is one of these guys that is a big 55er, huge 55er, 5-inch reach advantage, comes in, throws. He's one of Israel's teammates, but he almost throws more like vicious power when he throws than you see from like an Israel. Not that Israel doesn't throw crazy power, but Dan just looks like he is mean with every shot. He's ripping to the body. He's throwing head kicks. It almost seems like he's coming for blood with every shot. And Iaquinta is one of the toughest guys I've ever seen at 155. He deals with every shot, moves forward, gets into his boxing range. He's not necessarily a kicker. I mean, Iaquinta is going to box with you. He's going to stay in the pocket and box with you. Got great takedown defense. Both guys do. I just think Dan Hooker, with his reach advantage in this case, and I know he's ranked number 15, but this guy, a lot of people have been talking about the Hangman coming up through these ranks for a long time. And he's a guy that not a lot of people want to fight. I mean, he walked right through Gilbert Burns. So it's a different matchup for Iaquinta. He just came off the Cowboy matchup. You know, a guy that's going to try to point fight you. As he goes forward through the fight, gets more and more comfortable, then he starts to really unload. Dan Hooker's coming straight out of the gate, ready to fire. While they do have similar styles and obviously Muay Thai technique, but I think Dan Hooker is a quick starter, and Al's got to be ready for it. I just don't know if it's that classic kind of matchup where the boxing range is going to get you in trouble with a guy that kicks. And Dan Hooker kicks. I mean, he brings fury with his body kicks. And he'll come up top with the head kick. He'll eat up the legs. And then obviously his shots are coming for blood. So we're going to go Dan Hooker. I don't know if he finishes Al. Al's got such a good chin. I mean, he got beat up against Cowboy. He got beat up, and Cowboy kicked him in the face. He was giving him all types of trouble on the feet and couldn't finish Al. So I don't think Al gets finished here. I think he just gets outclassed, unfortunately. I don't like picking against Al because as soon as I do, I picked against him in the Kevin Lee fight, and he mollywopped Kevin Lee. So it's tough for me to pick against him. But Dan Hooker just looks so damn good right now that we're going to go with Dan Hooker by decision. I almost want to go split. I think it's going to be a close fight, but I think Dan Hooker gets a unanimous decision here and moves up in the 155 division. There's a lot of guys that Dan Hooker can really match up and do well with, but in this fight it's gonna be a tough matchup for Al. Just not the right range. I don't know how he gets inside on Dan, but we'll see. Yeah, 100% Dan Hooker's got. I think he throws more power. I don't know if he necessarily has more power, but he throws a ton more power behind his shots than Cowboy does. Cowboy would, especially at the start of fights, come out and really look to see kind of that feeling. I hate the term feeling out process, but to see kind of where he can fit his shots in. Dan Hooker's coming and throwing. Obviously, it's not like reckless, but he's coming in and saying, okay, what do you got? I'm going to throw my shit. You're going to throw your shit. What's up? So he's coming and throwing bombs. So I'm going Dan Hooker there. And then, guys, we have our main event of the evening. Robert the Reaper Whittaker, the last style bender, Israel Adesanya. Goosebumps, guys. Absolute goosebumps. I mean, what do you say about Robert Whittaker, man? Went through the absolute hell with Yoel Romero twice. Obviously, I've been a big proponent of arguing that maybe that second fight could have went either way. But at the end of the day, he got the nod, and he went over on Yoel twice. And we all know what a freak Yoel Romero is. Obviously, Robert's had some issues with his, I think it was some hernias he had, and then he was sick with shingles and almost died, before that. But so people really forget how good Robert is. Robert Whittaker is a finisher of people, man. He walked right through that entire division at 185, finishing guys, not just winning, finishing dudes after moving up from 170. And like I said, he's been through absolute wars with one of the best ever in Yoel Romero. But it's just hard when what have you done for me lately? Especially in MMA. MMA is almost, completely, what have you done for me lately? And Robert Whittaker hasn't done a ton lately. So people tend to forget how good this dude really is. Obviously, him being off for so long, that could, be an issue with ring rust, how's he looking in the cage? Is this moment too big for him at in his home country? I know he's from New Zealand, but he's made Australia his home. It's 56,000 people, all the pressure. And then we know that the guy on the other side of the cage deals with pressure pretty well. We're talking, of course, about Israel Adesanya. And that's the other side of the coin here because, yeah, Bobby Knuckles is coming to that cage. Israel Adesanya is coming the same way. And this guy is undefeated. I wouldn't say untested, though. He got tested in the Kelvin Gastelum fight. And the way this fight can go is pretty simple, right? Bobby Knuckles flatlines Israel in round 3. Fix says he loves Israel. This fight is I don't see any kind of grappling exchanges here. I'd be surprised. Now, we know that Robert Whittaker has great takedown defense. We also know that he won the Commonwealth. I don't know if he won, but he placed in the Commonwealth Games in a grappling contest. So it's not like Robert can't grapple. And if it comes to it, that might be the case. But I don't think either of these guys are really looking to grapple. I think Robert is especially from his interviews, keen on making Israel realize that he isn't the best striker at 185. A lot of people have called Israel out for being outstruck or getting tagged by a wrestler, Kelvin Gastelum, a wrestler. Let's make this clear. Kelvin Gastelum is one of the best boxers at 185. That dude puts people to sleep. He's not just a wrestler. That guy is a phenomenal boxer. And Israel tagged the shit out of him too. Israel dropped him like 4 times, 3 in the 5th round, something like that. So, and that 5th round was a war. That entire fight was a war, and the 5th round was there for the taking. In my opinion, it was 2-2 in the Kelvin Gastelum fight. 2 Kelvin, 2 Israel, and somebody had to come and grab that belt. And both guys went for it. It's just Israel came away with it. But man, in this fight, you're talking about just a guy that's a sniper like Israel Adesanya. Has every technique in the book. Things that you want to do, things that you could even dream of doing technique-wise, this guy has it. He can hit you from everywhere. He knows how to defend his takedowns. He knows how to set up his shots. He's the feint king. This guy, when Israel throws feints, and this is, I think, one of the keys to the fight. When Israel throws feints and he finds a way to get you to bite, whether it's first, second, third, whatever, when he finds that opening after feinting, and whether there's the twist on the kick or popping the left hand out to try to see where your guard is, or how you react to hooks, whatever it is, he's going to make a mental note, just like any other fighter would. But then when he comes back, he's not just throwing whatever you feinted off of. He's throwing 2, 3, 4, 5 more combinations behind it. So Israel, in my opinion, is the king of, especially at 185, the king of feints, because his smallest reactions bring out something from his opposing fighter. Now, we talked about this Tuesday, and I had a little bit of a delve into what's happening in their mindset to possibly bring out in their physical, how Israel through the media has kept talking about how Robert isn't a true Aussie. He's turned his back on his New Zealanders, and just trying to drum up a lot of interest in the fight. Fairly, I think it's more interest in the fight, but I do think that there's something there with Israel that he's trying to bring out of Robert, whether it's him being a troll or him trying to see where Robert's kind of mental is at this point. I think Israel, in theory, is feinting. I think he's feinting with all these little verbal jabs at Robert to see what happens, and Robert shut it all down. Whittaker said, look, he can talk, he can promote the fight, I'm here to fight, I'm here to do what I want to do. It's like, I don't hate Israel, we have to fight, it's one of the biggest ever, I'm going to win. Robert shut all of that down, and I don't know if that has an effect, but if we translate that from a mental mindset, right? If we translate that to the physical, if Robert doesn't bite on these feints in the fight, I know this is completely different. If Robert doesn't bite on these feints, and Kelvin didn't at the start of their fight, Israel tends to get frustrated a little bit. Starts to move forward inside of what he would establish his range to be, right? Israel's range is kick and punch range at a 6.5 reach advantage. You get into Bobby Knuckles' range, you're in trouble. Excuse me, guys. I'm sorry. I'm a little sick. If you get into Bobby Knuckles' range, Robert throws combos and heavy combos. I'm talking 5, 6, 7 punch combos ending with a high kick. If Israel can't establish his range and get Bobby to walk into his feints, it's going to be some real trouble. It's a 5-round fight. Both guys have been 5. Both guys have dug deep. This is so hard to call. God, I really thought I knew who I was going to pick coming into this, and now I'm waffling a little bit. I think we're going to go with Israel Adesanya. Kyle's not going to like that. I think we're going to go with Israel Adesanya either by decision or reminiscent to the Kelvin fight, a later 5th round TKO. I think after everything that happens in this fight, I think Bobby Knuckles comes out the gate and maybe wins the first 2 rounds. I even think possibly he can win the 3rd, but over the longevity of the fight, Israel will figure out the entrances and the exits of Bobby Knuckles. He'll figure out where the holes lie, and the feints will start to work because the shots will add up. I'm not saying that Israel is a powerful puncher. He's not. He also could possibly be a little chinny, but he held up against one of the hardest punchers at middleweight in Kelvin Gastelum. That guy starches a lot of people. He put Chris Weidman down at least for a couple of seconds before he got up. I know, Kyle. I'm sorry, man. I just think if this fight goes into those later rounds, his technique doesn't go away, and it starts to pile on, right? Those shots start to hurt a little more. Those shots that he hit Kelvin with in the 1st and 2nd round weren't hurting him as bad as they were in that 5th round. He was trying to put him away, and he was doing a good job of it. So I think if we get to that last part, that 5th round, and Israel's still in there, I think he either TKOs or possibly wins those last 3 rounds and gets that unanimous decision. That's my pick, guys. That's my pick. I'm sticking to it. I'm a big fan of both these guys. It's nothing personal, obviously. It's just when you look at it, if it's going to be a striking contest, you would have to think that the guy that was 75-5 as a kickboxer would hold the striking advantage. Obviously, this is not kickboxing, and Robert does a really good job of clinch work and getting in his range and throwing shots at different angles. But I think that Israel, after feeling that power from Kelvin, is going to fight a little smarter. Is going to fight, hopefully, at his range to try to keep Bobby at distance and win that fight. Robbie's just another level. 100%. Kelvin is who he is, and Robert's pace is insane. He's a finisher that just keeps coming forward on you. Great takedown defense. By no means am I discounting what Robert Whittaker brings to the table. I just think that Israel Adesanya, if this is going to be a striking matchup, is going to find a way to get it done. What do I think? Who should fight Khabib next? Tony Ferguson should fight Khabib next, no question. Conor does not get the Khabib fight next. I don't see why that's even a discussion at this point. Conor has to come back and establish himself again, and that's not even just for division's sake. For Conor's sake, Conor needs to get back into a flow of things. It is very, very hard to prepare for a world championship fight without any sort of real competitive simulation, right? You can simulate it all the time in the practice room, but walking out in front of the fans, headlining the card, getting into that cage when it's cold and it's like 60 degrees in the venue, and you're there and it means something, right? It's not just 5 rounds in the gym and, I don't know what their camp's like, but it's not 5 rounds where you can take a round off or you can fight this guy that you've been training with for months. This is a 5-round fight against a guy that's coming to take your head off. And Conor has to get back and refill those emotions and reignite whatever that flame is that is keeping him from getting back in there. He's got to get back in against a dangerous guy and test himself. Because I think at the end of the day, Conor's a competitor. Take all the money away, take everything away. I think Conor McGregor is a competitor. And I think the best way for him to get back on track, win or lose, is to get in there with a guy that's dangerous and a guy that can actually take him out. And Justin Gaethje's the guy. You have to feel those nerves. You have to feel those situations. If Conor's going to fight again at the elite level, he has to get back in and fight elite guys. He just has to. And then it says, if Khabib doesn't fight Tony, riots will occur. Straight up, dude. If they don't make that fight, the MMA community might as well they'll strike. They will strike if they find a way to screw Tony out of that fight. But I think that'll happen. I think that happens probably toward the first of the year this year with or next year, with Tony and Khabib. I think that's when that goes down. But yeah, guys, that is our predictions episode. So sorry about the freaking audio messing up earlier, but let's go through it one more time. Let's go back to full screen because, sorry, I was on that screen for a long time. All right, we have, let's see here. These are our picks. Kyle, Fix, keep me to it, okay? Everybody that's watching in the chat, keep me to these picks because I want to know how we do this time. I want to know let me know your guys' picks real quick in the chat. Just drop them in there so I can have a record of them. So when you try to, I picked this guy, I picked Rob, I promise I picked Rob. Nah, we're holding people to it. We have it in stone. Mine's on VOD. I can't back out. You guys throw it in the chat. All right, I have Justin Tafa. We have Luke Jumeau. We have Tuivasa. We have Dan Hooker. I wonder what the odds are on the Hooker fight. We might throw some money down. Kelsey just walked in, so can't let her hear me say that. And then we have Israel Adesanya. Those are our picks, guys. Yeah, this is going to be a phenomenal card. I really wish I could watch with you guys, man. This is hopefully, I'm trying to figure out a way to get Saturdays off so we can start doing these live stream reactions again. I love those so much. We're the same, Kyle? Wait, what did you pick? What about the prelims? We have our prelim fight. Oh, yeah, well, you picked Jake too. Well, hey, when the money's on the line, you understand? When the big boy pants get thrown on, me and you different on that one. Israel Adesanya, Robert Whittaker. Hell of a fight, man. Hell of a fight. But yeah, hopefully we can get back to doing these fight live stream reactions. I love those. Those are some of my favorite things to do. So hopefully we can do that in the next couple of weeks here. I can figure that out, get my shifts figured out, or hopefully a new job here or there. But yes, that is our predictions episode. Guys, this is for a little bit. We're going to try this and we're going to see what happens. But this is our last live stream podcast for a while. So thank you guys for making this part of my day some of the most fun conversations I get to have. We'll see what the recordings do. We'll see if you guys like that content. And if you do, obviously, let me know by leaving a comment on those videos, subscribing if you're new to the channel. Make sure you like the videos if you like what we're doing. And then, obviously, if you don't get a chance to watch the videos, the segments, or the full podcast, we'll have the entire audio podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, hopefully on Stitcher soon. But yes, this is a new kind of path for me. I've never done it this way. So we'll see what happens. But thank you guys, as always. Kyle, thank you for being in here. Fix, thank you for being here, man. Subscribe if you like the channel. My boy AJ that was here earlier before the audio went crazy. Thank you guys so much. And until next time, this is the W.A.D.E concept. UFC 243 this Saturday. We debated everything. I'll see you guys next week. We'll review it all. Peace.